Hello, and we are here again for another episode of the Athletic Mind Unleashed. And this time, it's a miracle even that I'm not talking to somebody who's across the ocean or on the other side of the world. We are almost even in the same time zone because I'm in Estonia, Tallinn, and Ralph Velasco, he's in Sweden, Stockholm right now. But I think it is a miracle because he's also somebody who's traveling a lot, who's traveling the world. And I hope to find out more about his travels right now, how it feels to be a digital nomad. Also, I will want to hear about his book that is also connected to travels. And of course, we will touch upon his athletic background. Let's start somewhere. Tell me, how did you end up in
So
Purposeful?
I organize and lead small group trips around the world, and I'm here in advance of a group
Mm.
that is coming today. I think is Thursday. My group trip starts on Saturday here in Stockholm. Then we are going up to Lapland, Finnish and Swedish Lapland, to search for the Northern Lights. And then we end up in Helsinki and finish up there. So that's
Ooh,
why I'm in town.
wow. I saw the Northern Lights a few days ago in Estonia, Tallinn. I was very surprised. And it was also my birthday. And that was the first time I saw them. And it is just because I was visiting my friend who lives by the sea, so less light pollution. It was like a surprise. I've never seen them. I was like, okay, it's also possible here in Tallinn, Estonia. But you're going to Lapland to see the big, pretty,
Let's
proper
hope.
north,
Let's hope.
right?
Of course, depending on the weather and the cloud cover and everything. So it's obviously something you can never guarantee, Mother Nature, but we've got a very good chance of seeing them because I guess they go in 11-year cycles, and this is the peak cycle season. So we're very
Mm.
hopeful that we'll get to see them this time.
How did you even get into this group traveling?
Been
Very
doing this for
exciting.
over 15 years now, and started out very small, just teaching people how to use their new digital cameras way back when, 16, 18 years ago, and started out
Mm.
just teaching people how to use these new digital devices at the time, digital cameras. And so I thought there might be an opportunity to create some tours locally when in the US, where I'm from, Chicago. I was living in Southern California as well. Just little by little, I created 2-hour session with someone to go over their camera. Then we do walking tour in the neighborhood, and that grew to half day tours and full days, weekends. Eventually, I started doing international trips, and now I pretty much only do international trips around the world with groups.
Wow. And it's very often about catching the nature's wonders, or what other topics do you have?
Teaching photography, I consider myself a travel photographer. There are landscape photographers, nature, animal photographer, wildlife, but I consider myself a travel photographer. What I mean by that is that with travel photography, you have to be good at photographing all different types of subjects and to be able to tell the
Mm.
story of the place. I go to a place, I don't want to just show plates of food or wildlife or nature, but I want to show all those things. And to give the viewers of my photography and my videos,
Mm.
I'm shooting a lot more video now. I have a YouTube channel. And so, shooting a variety of video and photographs so that it keeps people's interest because 45 minutes of even the most beautiful landscapes gets a little boring after a while. And so if you can show the people, the food, the culture, the wildlife, nature, that tells the story of the place. As photographers and videographers, I think we're storytellers first.
This is very fascinating. And what kind of places do you prefer the most? Where are the best
Oh, yeah,
stories
great
hidden in
question.
this world?
Some of my favorite places to photograph and to take video are like India. The colors and the people and the culture is just out of this world. And so that's a wonderful place to photograph and try to tell the
Mm.
story of. I just got back from Antarctica, and that was my first trip there and my seventh continent. So that was truly fascinating. I tend to go back to these places over and over again. I'm lucky because I do a trip and I go back again and again with groups. So I get to know them better and better, and I see things differently. One of my favorite things is to see the place through the eyes of my clients and to introduce them to the people I met and the
Mm.
things I saw and the experiences I've had, to see it through their eyes. Another one of my favorites is the Republic of Georgia. Beautiful country. I've done Cuba many times. Every place has some sort of a story to tell. You just sometimes have to look a little bit deeper to find it.
It sounds like you have this very interesting approach to traveling because first you're seeing the place for yourself through your own eyes, and then you will also see it through somebody else's eyes. In the meantime, you also maybe deciding, okay, how do I want to package this place? What do I want to show to my clients? So how do you even choose the experiences and people that you want to share with your clients when you come back for?
I typically go to a place a year in advance and I scout it out and I see it for myself. I might see two, three, four times the amount of things that we could possibly put into a 10 or 14-day trip. And so I have to decide what things may be somewhat repetitive or what things were just highlights that must be included, other things that were maybe a little bit disappointing or didn't fit in. That's a fun part of my job, to try to put the pieces of that puzzle together to create a really great trip for the client that gives them a good variety, like the photography we just talked about, where you want to show variety. With a trip, you also want to include variety. Having great food experiences. We do sometimes locally guided foodie tours with an expert, market walks with a chef, cooking demonstrations, cooking classes. That's always fun because food is such a big part of travel, but also meeting interesting people,
Mm.
artisans, people at work, and people that are doing interesting things, or perhaps things that are a little bit more timely, where they're people that are trying to maintain their culture over hundreds of years and they want to keep this particular weaving method or something alive. It's always fun to go see that and how that works. So, those are kinds of things that are very interesting. They're great for travel, but they're also almost always great for photography too.
Mm. Sounds like a very fun way to travel, and because basically your job is to explore and to look for experiences that you can then share with other people. And that sounds like the most fantastic job. I think it's also a way of nomading because you're always on the move. So I think you don't have this space where you're staying
After
in the
doing this
world.
for 15 or 16 years, it gets tiring. I'm sure you've probably traveled too, and other people that
Mm.
are listening. It's one thing if you're doing it once or twice a year, or you go for a couple weeks here and there, but it's somewhat different when you're doing it 9 months out of the year. And so after a while, you want to be able to just unpack for a week. And that's a luxury as opposed to moving around too much and too often, dragging bags around, dealing with all the negatives of travel, because we all know what those are: waiting in lines, flying, losing luggage. The airline lost my luggage yesterday. Those are the issues, the downside of travel. Someone who travels as much as I do,
Mhm.
we get those issues a lot more than most people because we're on the road so much. But to contrast that, we also get all the positive parts of travel a lot more too. So that's the trade off. I'm looking to slow down a little bit and to perhaps find a base, a home base here in Europe. I'm looking to move to Europe in the next 12 to 18 months. Then a lot of my trips are based here in Europe. So then my trips will just be short 2, 3 hour flights instead of sometimes having to fly halfway across the world to get to a trip.
Wow. And when you contacted me, you also mentioned that you're a minimalist. So this is something that you have learned to be because you travel so much, and I think it's easier to carry less stuff with you. So has it always been like this, or was it like a gradual change
It
in
was a
the
gradual
lifestyle?
change because, of course, like most people, I accumulated a lot of stuff. I had apartment and The bigger the place, the more stuff you seem to accumulate. One of the best things I ever did was to minimize. I think that's before it was even really a term, maybe 12 or 14 years ago. I remember exactly where I was. I was in Toledo, Spain. I'd been on the road for 2 months and I was carrying my bag, and I've got like a camera bag, backpack, and then a roller bag. I'd been on the road for 2 months and I realized if I can get by for 2 months, I could probably get by for a lot longer than that, even because it's the same clothes and you just wash them. You don't pack for 2 months. You pack for a week or 10 days and then you just wash your clothes, of course. It was a gradual thing, but I was living in Southern California at the time, one of the most expensive places in the world. And I was there for 3 months, maybe 2 weeks
Mm.
here, 10 days there. I finally realized this is silly. Why am I paying rent 12 months of the year in the most expensive place in the world? And I'm only there for 3 months. And so it was a financial decision, it was a comfort decision. I think it's even better for the environment and it may be a little self-serving, but I say I'd rather spend money on experiences than things. At the end of your
Mhm.
life, it's not who's got the most stuff. I feel like it's more about who's had the most experiences and quality of life.
Yeah, in the end, you will remember these moments. But in terms of all the things that you still have, what are the must have items that you always
Yeah.
have with you when you're traveling?
Of course, things like passport, my computer, because I do business from anywhere that I am, the definition of a digital nomad. So I've got my laptop, which of course is my life, my business, everything. So I've got to have that. People often assume that I'm a very light packer, that I don't carry much stuff. And I like to think I'm a good packer, but when I'm on the road for 2 months and I know that I'm going to be out there, like I said, you only pack for 10 days, but I don't want to wear the same pair of shoes for 2 months. I don't want to wear the same 5 shirts for 2 months. So I'll pack 10 shirts or two or three pairs of shoes just to have a little variety, because that's one of those things that we forget about or we take for granted, is that when we're at home, we've got 8 or 10 pairs of shoes or how many ever clothes, and we can have variety. Oh, today I feel like wearing this or that. But when you're on the road with a minimal amount of
Mhm.
stuff, there's not a lot of choice. So again, with everything, there's pros and cons.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But it sounds like over the years you have found some kind of balance in that kind of
Yes,
lifestyle as well.
definitely.
So that's like a modern digital nomad, traveling and also taking other people to
Hmm.
their own experiences. Do you have a favorite country or area even? Because you've been all over the place, even Antarctica. So what's your favorite of
The
these
Antarctica
places?
trip was amazing. I found out that I was going within 2 or 3 weeks of actually going. So I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, to be honest. And so that was a very surprise sort of trip, which doesn't happen because, like I say, I am often planning a year or more in advance of a trip. So to have
Mm.
sort of an impromptu trip like that come up is unusual. I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, to even study it much, but I had a group going and I was able to go myself. And people that saw the pictures of me down there, many people mentioned, I could just see the excitement on your face. I could tell that you were having a great time. When you go back to a place over and over again, I'm still excited about the place, but it's less and less, a little bit less and less as you go back
Mhm.
more often. So it's unusual for me to go to a new place, and such a new place like Antarctica. So I was blown away by the beauty and the isolation and the fact that it's totally nature down there. Other than the ship that you're staying on, there's no cell towers or garbage in the ocean. It's just pristine, beautiful landscapes, natural world, these animals that are living in conditions that you just can't understand how they are able to survive, but they do. And so to me, that was really interesting. So Antarctica is probably the most impressive trip that I've ever taken. But I also mentioned I love the Republic of Georgia. Cuba is a place I go back to very often. I've good friends there. That's the other thing. When I go back to these places over and over again, I'm able to make friends. And actually, today, you mentioned I'm here in Stockholm. And right after our interview, a very old friend of mine I met him on a round the world trip I took back in 1988. So many years ago. Yeah. I did a round the world trip.
Wow.
I sold my first restaurant. This was before the internet, before cell phones, practically before the wheel. We are still in touch, and he lives nearby here in Stockholm. I'm going to see him today for only the second time since 1988.
That's the year when I was born, so that's like
Yeah,
a long
yeah.
time ago.
So it's so fun to have these friends and contacts from around the world that I've met in so many places, and to still be friends with them and see them over and over again.
So you already had round the world trip like back in 88. I think that was like very different experience because no internet, you couldn't book everything online. How did it even like work? How
Yeah.
did you plan
So I
this?
bought a round the world ticket, which are still available today. You can still buy a round the world ticket. I looked not too long ago, and the price
Hmm.
hasn't changed that much. I think I paid $2,400 for a round the world ticket
Hmm.
way back then. And today, or most recently, when I looked, the tickets were about $2,400. So that's hard
Wow.
to believe, especially with inflation. They might be more than that now, but that was pretty impressive. But yeah, it was a lot of actually sending away by snail mail for brochures or looking in, I hate to even say it, encyclopedias. Remember those? Yeah, just trying to find
Uh-huh.
information. Anyway, going to travel agencies, and those were the ways that you figured things out back then. And then just showing up, and there wasn't the hotel apps and online, and so you showed up and you tried to make a reservation and you hoped that there was room. So it was a different time, but I'm really glad that
Mm.
I had that experience way back then. And of course, I didn't know what I was missing and how easy,
Yeah.
much easier, let's say, it was going to be when the internet came and cell phones and apps and all those things.
Back then you were so dependent on other people, waiting for replies, waiting for the snail mail, showing up and hoping there is a bed for you waiting in a hotel.
Another good piece of information, I just thinking
So
about it, was people that when you got to a place and maybe you're at the airport or the bus station, you would meet people that were leaving that place, and that was a really good source of information. Where did you go? Where did you stay? What should I see when I'm here? What should I
mm,
avoid? Kind of food should I try? So, in that sense, it was a lot more personal because you're actually talking to people and getting information from a live person, not just clicking on totally,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's like the
Yes,
TripAdvisor reviews, but in real
exactly,
time
yeah,
and real life. I think it's actually connects people together more
absolutely,
when you do it like this. Yeah, that's quite nice even. Of course, it's more time consuming, and time is our main currency, and we value it very highly. So today's world, people
exactly.
don't have the time to do this. I don't know
I'm
if
not
it's
sure.
sad or if it's good, but that's the truth. And I also know that out of all this traveling, you were all inspired to write a book, and this is about travel affirmations. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this
Yes,
book's
I
all
wrote
about.
a book recently, just came out about 2 months ago, and it's called 60 Affirmations for Travel, and it's an adult activity and coloring book. I'll be honest, I
Hmm.
didn't even know that was a thing, the coloring part of it. But people are very much into coloring. I added these beautiful travel icons that I found to the book so that if people want to the idea of the book was to keep your mindset on travel, on where you are, because as we were just talking, our minds are so everywhere. They can be everywhere. You can get on your phone and be
Mhm.
anywhere in the world you want to, at least virtually. So for people to
Mhm.
not to be able to do that today is so incredible. But the idea is that if we can keep our minds into the place that we are. Way back when I was in high school, I was a volunteer in Peru, and I went with a group of I think it was 9 other students and several adults who at the time were 23 years old when I think about it. Those were our adults. The main
Mhm.
theme of that trip was be here now. And what they meant was we
Mm.
were young kids thinking, oh, I wish I had my mom's best meal that she always made, or we're always thinking of being elsewhere and where we were could be better. And we were just immature young kids. The theme of the trip was be here now, try to get your mindset into this place and make the best of it. To me, that's what affirmations help you do.
Mhm.
They help to bring you back to present and to make you a more mindful and intentional traveler. That's the idea of the book. There's 60 affirmations. There's a bunch of those travel icons that people can decide to color or doodle on. There's space for people to write their own notes and thoughts. Then I've got a new book coming out called 60 Gratitudes for Travel, which is along the same lines. So I'm looking to diversify my income stream. Writing books is going to be a big part of that going forward. I've written books in the past, but now I'm much more intentional about doing that.
So mindful travel. I think that's very important because when we travel, there are so many different information inputs coming, and it can be easy to get lost in all this. Then you have your own thoughts, and just being here, present right now. I think very good
Actions
thing to
today,
have.
no doubt about it. The more we can bring ourselves back to present, to be here now, I think can help and make the now that much more exciting and beneficial to us.
And this book, this is also small enough that you can easily
It's
go like
it's 6 by
traveling.
9 inches, so it's a small size. It's a little bit thick, but because of the coloring pages, but it's like a typical paperback book that you might, pick up and you read along the way. But the idea was that if you're sitting on an airplane, you're waiting for a bus, you've got some things that, will keep your mind again in present, thinking about travel. Yes.
I think this is even a good way of
Yes,
journaling or
yes.
calming down your
And
mind.
put the blank pages in
Yeah.
there for people to journal.
And
Exactly. Mhm. And that's a
yeah, this sounds like a very cool travel
and
diary,
there's an
travel
ebook
journal.
version of it,
Yeah.
that is more about the affirmations, not the writing in it because it's an ebook. But, the physical book
Hmm.
itself, of course, you can write in and draw. They're both available on Amazon, and I can give you that link if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. I will put all your links in the show
Thank
notes
you.
as well, the book link as well. Wow, that's amazing. Travel can have so many different layers, and who knew that coloring might be one of the layers
Yes,
that
yes.
you can add to traveling. And I think this is all a combination of your life and everything that you have been doing because you've been around for a while, you've been doing a lot of stuff. I also know that when you were younger, you were an athlete. So I'm always very interested in the athletic part of people's journeys because as an athlete myself, I think that everything that you learn as an athlete, basically like the mindset and discipline, routines, this will also carry on into your life later on. Tell me a little bit about your athletic journey.
I was born and raised in Chicago, US. You may know it's a little bit north. It's a little bit colder city. It's somewhat similar to Stockholm in this part of the world, Scandinavia,
Mm.
where we have a very distinct winter. And so hockey was a very popular sport back then. I started playing probably when I was 8 or 9 years old. I played all through the way to college sports. And it really brings it back to this travel and that idea of the affirmations and the mindset and the be here now. Because as an athlete, it's probably mostly about the mindset and being able to concentrate and to settle your mind and to be in the moment. I think that's very relevant to what we were just talking about and that single-mindedness of, okay, I've got this thing that I have to do, whatever your sport is, this goal, whether it's a team sport or an individual sport, and you have to be extremely present to reach that goal and hopefully to win.
Yeah, it's true. If you're not present in your game or in your sport, you're
Oh,
more likely
yes,
to fail. I think
absolutely.
focus is
But
very important in this. This also sounds like quite a long career that you had as a child already and
yeah,
into the college years.
I do miss
Do you
it, and I love
do you
to
still miss
watch
it?
professional hockey these days, and coming from Chicago, where Chicago Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup for 3 years out of about 6 or 7, that was fun. So I do enjoy watching sports and especially hockey. I was also, I guess you could call a semi-professional sailor, so I raced big boats, started learning that in Chicago, which has a very big sailing community because we're on Lake Michigan, which is a very large lake. Actually, the most extreme conditions I've ever sailed in were in Chicago, not even on the open ocean. Where, and because I also sailed in San Diego and Newport Beach, California, and I used to bring my foul weather gear because in Chicago, even in the summer, you would bring big, heavy waterproof gear because you never knew what the conditions were going to be
Mm.
like. When I got to Southern California, I was bringing this bag with my fall weather gear, and the guys are like, "What are you doing? What? It never gets bad here because it's some of the best weather in the world."
Mm.
So I got rid of that stuff and just enjoyed being in the moment there. But sailing, and that was also a team sport. So you've got typically 8 people on a team, and you're racing this big, very expensive boat against other boats. To me, that was one of the most fun endeavors that I ever took on, and we were very good. We were boat of the year and winning a lot of championships and stuff. So it was extremely fun.
Yeah, and I think now that you like a lot and you don't have all these people around, it would be harder to do the same kind of sport because you need,
That's
the
exactly
team of
right.
8 or 9
And the
people.
reason I stopped sailing was because I was traveling. Because it's such a team sport, they need to rely on you every week. In Southern California, it's a pretty much a year-round sport. But when I started traveling more, I couldn't commit and I couldn't be a good member of the team. That was always a problem. That's why I phased out of sailing because I just couldn't commit. I was always around the world somewhere.
So you chose
Exactly.
travel. And how do you keep active right now when you're always traveling? Any
That's
ways to
another great
do
question.
something?
It's very difficult. Obviously, you're doing more walking than you typically might when you're at home, or at least I do. I'm out and about even more when I'm traveling, but trying to get into any kind of a routine is very difficult, especially when you're moving around every 2 or 3 days, which I try not to be moving around that much. When I'm with a group, it's hard to stay in one place. Although I started creating trips where we would be in one place for a week, and then we would just do individual day trips,
Mm.
hub and spoke, they call it, where you're based in one place, you pack and unpack once, so you have some stability, and then you just travel for a half hour, 1
Hmm.
hour around the area. That was something that my clients were asking me for, but also that was really good for me. As I mentioned, I think before we got on air, was just to be in a place for 1 week is a luxury. Right now, I'm here in Stockholm for 6 nights in the same hotel, same room. I can relax a little bit, where if you're in a place for a day or 2, you don't wanna unpack because then you gotta repack everything. So, to me, that's quite the luxury to be in one place for even 6 days.
I think as human beings, we need also some stability and some grounding and balancing because if you're always on the go, you don't even have
Yeah.
this moment to be present with yourself because you're always, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Maybe it's even hard to enjoy the present moment and the surroundings if you're always about to
It's
leave
so true, and
any
especially,
moment.
as a photographer, I would take these wonderful pictures on these trips, and if I didn't work on them or sort them, or I would always try to pick out the best ones for that trip, I was on to the next trip, and so I would forget about that trip or those
Mhm.
images. I had to be present to get those pictures sorted, otherwise I was on to the next 2 or 3 trips, and that trip got put on the back burner, and I might never have gotten back to it. Oh my
Then you
gosh,
have this amount of photos. Never thought it.
incredible. Yeah,
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
it's
Still, it sounds like an exciting life to have, to travel for work and to just find out nice experiences to share with other people, keep our eyes open for the best places, looking for beauty in the world.
I'm with people at the best time of their lives. they're on vacation. There's so many
Mm,
jobs that people have where maybe they're with people at the worst time of their lives, like police officers or firemen and coworker. I'm with people when they're
mm.
enjoying and they're letting their guard down and they're open to new things. I'm introducing them to interesting people and places and foods. There's nothing better than that. I have to remind myself of that every now and then, of how great it is to have this kind of a job in that sense. So you're exactly right.
You're making the lives of these people better. Then they go back to the regular daily life. And maybe if they get very happy during your trips, they will also, or the people who are like in the police offices and the hospitals, they will also have better
Yeah,
experience with these people who come back rested.
that,
And maybe they will have less problems.
that's
So you're basically making a world a better place. Nice.
yeah, basically.
Yeah, it has been amazing. It feels like you opened a new door for me during this short conversation.
Are,
And I can see, yeah, this is one more way how to work and how to make travel into a job.
do you
Both
get to
sides.
travel yourself much?
I get to, but right now I'm at home. I spend like a lot of time in Barcelona, but I don't live in Barcelona. I live in Tallinn, so that's my home. And I felt I need this grounding and balancing and the kind of energy that only
Yes.
your own home can give. I needed to be around my own stuff, my own energy, and not just because when I was traveling, I was doing house sitting. So if somebody else went away and they had maybe cats, dogs, other pets who needed to be taken care of, I moved in, I lived
Yes.
in the place and took care of them. But you're in other people's place and space and energy, and it's not the
Yeah.
same. So I needed to calm down a little bit. But I did go to
Ah,
Barcelona for 5 days just a few weeks ago because I just needed to get
right,
away
right.
for a
I've done
moment
house
and then come
sitting
back.
too. I know what you mean.
That's also
Oh,
another
absolutely.
interesting way to travel and to
Yes.
see how people
Yes.
actually live. If people want to
Yeah.
find you, where can they find you? I will also put all these links into the show notes, of course, but just mention the
Sure.
different
Yeah,
places
I have a
present.
website where kind of everything revolves around, and that's continentaldrifter.co. And you can find my tours there, my blogs.
Mhm.
I've got a weekly blog that I put up, all my podcast interviews that I've been on and done. My YouTube channel videos are there. That's the hub of everything. Continental Drifter. And I'm also
Mm.
pretty active on Facebook slash Ralph Velasco and Instagram the same. I go in ebbs and flows with social media, but I like to put up
Mhm.
pictures and videos of the places I'm currently in or that I was recently, and but keeps that travel mindset going and keeps people excited
Yeah.
about my trips as well. That perhaps someday they want to join me.
It's very nice that you have a hub, so you don't have a stable home, but you have this home online
Yes,
where you put all
exactly.
the stuff together. Because I think in real life you might be a little bit hard to capture. You never know. You're like even
That's
which
right.
continent you are on, or maybe you're in Antarctica, or
Sometimes, like I said, I was just in Antarctica three
yeah,
weeks
yeah.
ago, and today I'm in the north and I'm going to the Arctic Circle in about 5 days. So it's all over the place.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for opening up your world to me and my listeners. And if anybody feels like traveling with you,
Wonderful.
you
Hey,
know where
Celia,
to
I
find
really
you.
appreciate. Thank you
Arctic
very
Circle.
much, Celia. I really
Okay,
appreciate it.
thank you.